So the choice to make this particular costume came from the idea of a challenge for myself, which was to only use materials I already owned or to recycle materials from previous costumes. This would include anything from the pattern itself to the actual physical cloak, like boot covers, etc. So I used a cloak base pattern from the Simplicity cloak set. So most of what I'm going to be talking about isn't necessarily how to follow that pattern, but rather what deviations I made from the pattern. And first and foremost is the choice to use French seams for all of the seams minus the front hems. This has everything to do with the fact that the fabric that I chose to use for this cloak, despite being the right color, is super thin. And for reasons that we'll get into later on in the video, I didn't want to give it a lining, but want it to have a finished look, want those seams to not fray, so a French seam seemed like the most logical choice here. The actual pattern calls for a liner, and it calls for either serging or utilizing a stronger, essentially multiple different anti-fray seamings, and I just didn't want to do that, so we weren't going to do it. Second thing to note about with it being a lightweight fabric, I chose to add interfacing to the front of the capelet as to give it stability for the straps that we would add on later. And of course, the collar. Now, the Simplicity pattern doesn't have a collar, nor does it call for interfacing in the collar. So I naturally decided to add my own, using my own pattern that I actually used for Grekel's Birdman. His cloak is very, very similar to Vincent, so it felt like a natural sort of progression. And of course, as I mentioned, because of how lightweight the fabric is, I made, of course, a liner for each, the capelet and the collar, and of course added interfacing to both respectively wherever I needed to. From there on, following the pattern is normal with the capelets, just making sure that everything, you know, lines up and is sewn as it needs to be, ironed as it needs to be. But with the collar, you actually find that I made a bit of a mistake with the collar, and that's okay. We're gonna work through it. That's what we crafters do. One of the things that I completely, just a rookie mistake that I decided that I was going to deal with instead of starting over, was the fact that I'd actually made the interfacing a little too big. Now, there are a couple options when it comes to interfacing and doing something like a collar, for example. You can either, you know, sew all of the pieces together as you need to, and then essentially go in with, like, what you'll see me use later, a pinking shears, to essentially make it so that the fabric doesn't stretch too much over the interfacing that it ends up in the seam. Or you can make the liner slightly larger than the other side to prevent that sort of tugging. You'll see I naturally did not do the second option to fix my mistake, and you can see I'm going in and shearing the seams, the seam allowance, super short, because otherwise the color's not going to lay the way that it needed to. And I didn't want to remake it because I'm living with my choices. And that's just what we do sometimes, is we just live with our choices. The other pro tip is to, of course, make your interfacing smaller than the fabric. But as I mentioned, did not think that through exactly. And so we are dealing with the consequences of our actions. Cutting the corners so that they lay perfectly flat, turning it inside out, and finishing off the top of the collar as one does, as we do. You'll see here that, of course, even though I've added interfacing to certain things and I've gone through and I've sewn things to, in theory, make them pop up and or lie flat, I'm still ironing them. General rule of thumb is iron everything when it comes to sewing, including the collar, and the reason, as you'll see here, is so that it actually can sit the way that it needs to, looking flat. Now here, I made the choice to sew the bottom of the cloak, the capelet, those two parts together, and then go in with a hand stitch. A couple reasons for that. Number one, with the many layers of fabric, many layers of interfacing, it can be really, really difficult for a machine needle to actually get through and not break. Second reason, and probably the most important reason, is that I have a tendency of using a couple of different techniques in my hand sewing to make the seams stronger, fundamentally stronger. For one, I don't just do a running stitch, I do a combination running them back. So I'll every other stitch or every stitch go do a running stitch, forward 2, back stitch 1, forward 2, back stitch 1. The other thing that I do is between every single new stitch, I knot kind of every other stitch, because the combination of the back stitch and the knot, while it uses up more thread, will guarantee that whatever seam you make will not come undone. And with a garment like a cloak, in which the bottom tends to be really, really heavy and the seam has all of its tension sort of at one point, it's fundamental to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. That gives us our base cloak, and now it's detail time. So I am that type of person where I will take scrap fabric and I will make my own mock-up and my own pattern on the fly for smaller details like straps, just because it's easier than trying to go out and buy something. And of course, actually going in, pinning it down, sewing it the way that it needs to, making sure that it fits actually on the buckle before we sew it. And then once you're satisfied with it, you move to the actual strap. Now, you may have seen earlier in the video, I had a back-facing piece that had already been ironed to the interfacing in a previous step, and I had realized I didn't need the back-facing for what I was doing, the alterations I was making for the cloak. And it ended up being a piece that we weren't going to use, that I wasn't going to use. But I decided, since the straps, the pleather was actually a lot thinner than I thought it was going to be, I needed to stabilize it actually and make it more sturdy so it wouldn't just rip and fall apart. And so I cut up the back-facing piece into little squares to create the interfacing needed for these straps. It ended up working perfectly. I don't know if there's a technique for the way that I'm making these straps and the way that I've decided to sort of sandwich them together, but I sort of discovered this little technique to make makeshift straps back when I was making Ashton, about a year or two ago at this point, whenever that was, right around season 3 of Critical Role. But I discovered that I really liked, with pleather pieces, this specific way of making straps, and especially as decoration and like non-functional straps, and decided I was going to implement it in the same way. Again, I can't tell you if there's a technical name for it. Beyond me struggling to get the pleather to sit down, essentially the straps are like pretty easy. The straps are pretty much just a strip of fabric, as you can see, that's sandwiched together and then eventually sewn together. And then I take it, add the buckle to the front, and then sew down using a whip stitch, again knotted, because I knot everything, every single stitch I knot to make sure that it stays in place, but I use a whip stitch here. in order to secure the edges down. But then I did realize for a couple of the bottom straps that I really needed to machine stitch them just to add additional support. And from there we get into the clasps. Now Vincent has these cool little silver details on the edges of his straps, and I really don't know what they are. So I decided to go in and use a bunch of clasps that I had bought in bulk, and I decided to paint them. First with a primer base, as you saw previously, and then going in with two different coats, a base coat of silver using a mix of two different colors, and then going in with details to make it look tarnished. I thought with a guy who's out and about in the sort of, shall we say, warscape that is Final Fantasy, that it would be better to make it look tarnished. And of course adding the strap tips, and then the final buckles. And while the clasps were drying, I decided to go in and start weathering the cape. Now, rule of thumb, safety first. If you're gonna use, like I do, a utility knife, you have to swipe away from yourself. Do not swipe towards yourself. Practice scissor safety, practice knife safety. Do not be unsmart. You don't want to go to the hospital for, a cloak. And then instead of burning it like I wanted to, I ended up painting the bottom of the cloak to give it that burnt feel, but without dealing with the issue of what happens when you burn plastic. As I discovered from a scrap piece that I had burnt, this cloak is made with a mostly synthetic or polyester mix rather than a cotton mix. And then we add on, now that they're dry, the final clasp detailings. Once again, I'm using a combination of it's kind of like a running stitch as it goes underneath and over certain parts of the clasp in between different segments. You can't really see it in this video, but going between the different segments of the little clasp detailing, but then also using a whip stitch where applicable, so that the clasps are held down super securely, super tightly. And for a couple of them, I even added Velcro to allow me to access the clasps that are hidden underneath on the straps. And there you have it. The cloak is finished. Next up, we have the boot covers and the arm guard. See you then.